Hi, welcome to my video on the addition of rational numbers. The addition of rational numbers. Same denominators. Steps: change the mixed numeral to an improper fraction. Add the numerators. Keep the denominator. And simplify. Simplify means reduce. Let's do some examples. I have some here. And when you get down to practice, you can pause your video, work them out, see if you get them right. Practice. No mixed numerals, so 4 plus 2 is 6, all over to 7. When you add negative and positive, you subtract. 8 subtract 5 is 3, but there's more negatives, so it's negative 9 over 3, and that reduces to 3 and the negative 3 goes negative 1, 3 and your 9 goes 3. So notice, when you add, you keep your denominator and add up your numerators. And your common denominator is 6, negative 1, add on negative 3 is negative 4. You add them up, take a negative. And 2 will go into both of those because it's a GCF. 2 into 4, negative 4 goes negative 2. 2 into 6 goes 3. Common denominator is 8, great. When we add, we get a 2, and 2 over 8 divides by, excuse me, the GCF is 2. 2 and 2 goes once, 2 and 8 goes 4. Common denominator is 10. And we add the numerators. Negative 7, negative 8 is negative 15. When you add two negatives, you add them up and take a negative. And you can do two ways here. You can divide by 5 first to get a negative 3 over 2. And then you can divide 2 into 3 goes 1 and 1/2, 1 left over, and is negative. And we change our mixed numerals to improper fractions. 12 plus 1 is 13 over 6, negative. And we get 6 and 5 is 11 over 6. Common denominator is 6, write it down. Negative 13 add on 11 is negative 2. And divide by 2, you get a negative 1 and 3. Now you have a practice here. And if you wish, pause your video and work these out. Come back, press play, and see if you got them right. Common denominator is 15. Negative 8 and 3 is negative 5. Reduce. 5 is the GCF. 5 and the negative 5 is negative 1. 5 and the 15 is 3. Common denominator is 12. We add our numerators. We get a negative 18 and a negative 18. 6 goes into both of them. 6 goes into 12, 2. 6 goes into negative 18, negative 3. And 3 over 2 is 1 and 1/2 and is negative. And number 3, 10 plus 4 is 14 over 5. Add on negative 3 over 5. Common denominator is 5. 14 and negative 3 is 11. 5 goes into 11 twice and 1 left over. 9 is the least common denominator. 8 subtract 2 is 6. 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 goes into 9, 3. Notice 9 is your common denominator. I happen to say just NGCF, but I said the wrong word. Number 5, 18 is your common denominator. Add a negative 11 and negative 1, you get a negative 12. And 6 is the GCF. 6 into 18 goes 3. 6 into negative 12 is negative 2. And we have 84 plus 2 is 86 over 21, negative. And we have 42 and 5 is 47 over 21. When we add those up, common denominator is 21, and we subtract here and we get, looks like we get a 39. And 21 into 39 goes once, and there's 18 left over. And 18 over 21 reduces by 3. 3 into 18 goes 6. 3 into 21 goes 7, so 1 and 6/7. Common denominator is 14. Add 3 into -5 is -2. 2 is the GCF. 2 into -2 goes -1. 2 into 14 goes 7. Done. And 8, we get 16 plus 5 is 21 over 16, but it's negative. Add on -11 over 16. Common denominator is 16, write it down. Add them up, we get a -32. And a -32 divided by 16 works out to be a -2. Let's continue. What about adding when you have different denominators? We still change our mixed numerals to improper fractions. We find the LCD. We write equivalent fractions for each of the fractions we have with that LCD. Then we follow the addition rule, add the numerators, keep the denominator, and simplify. Here we go. The LCD of 5 and 10 is 10, so we multiply the first fraction by 2 over 2. That gives us 8 over 10 plus -1 over 10. We need a common denominator of 10, so we multiply by 2. That gives us 8 -1 is a 7 over 10. Done. Can't reduce it. And 4 and 6, common denominator is 12. And we multiply the 6 by 2 over 2. And we multiply the 4 by 3 over 3. Multiply that, we get a -9. 4 times 3 is 12. And add on, -2 times 1 is -2. 6 times 2 is 12, so we have our common denominator. So we keep our denominator and add our numerators. -9, -2 is a -11. Can't reduce. C, we get 12 plus 1 is 13 over 6. Make it negative. Because it's negative, we got to keep the negative. Add on 2/3. Common denominator for 6 and 3 is 6, so we multiply 2/3 by 2 over 2. Already, 13 over 6, negative 13 over 6, 4 over 6. 2 times 2, 3 times 2. Common denominator is 6, write it down. -13 add on 4 is -9. And 3 goes into both of those, GCF. 3 into 6 goes 2. 3 into 9 goes -3. And we get 3 divided by 2 is 1. 1 left over, and it's negative. Common denominator for 9 and 6. Well, let's just work that out for a second. 9 is 3 times 3. 6 is 2 times 3. So 9 is 3 times 3, 3 squared. So the least common denominator is the same as the least common multiple. So we have to write down each factor. So we got a factor of 2 and a factor of 3. And we take the highest exponent of each of them. That's a 1 and that's a 2. That gives us 2 times 9, 18 is the least common denominator. So we multiply the 6 by 3 over 3. We multiply the 9 by 2 over 2. That gives us -8 over 18 plus 3 over 18. The GCF, greatest common denominator, is 18, so we write it down. They're common. We have to write it down. -8 and 3 is -5. Can't reduce. E, 1 times 10 plus 3 is 13 over 10. Add on -13 over 15. Common denominator, let's see, 10 is 2 times 5. 15 is 3 times 5. So we have to write down one factor. We got a 2, a 3, and a 5. 2 times 3 times 5. 2 times 3 times 5, 6 times 5 is 30. So we have to multiply 10 by 3 over 3. Multiply 15 by 2 over 2. That gives us -39 when you multiply, and 30. And when you multiply here, you get a negative 26, and you get a 30. Common denominator is 30, so you write it down. When you add, you get a negative 39, and negative 26 is a negative 65. So 30 goes into that twice, and there's 5 left over. And so we get 2 and 5 over 30, and it's negative. And 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 36 times. 12 and 18, we got to get the, if you can't see it right away, we break it down. 12 is 4 times 3, and the 4 is 2 times 2. So that's 2 squared times 3. 18 is 2 times 9, which is 3 times 3. So that's 2 times 3 squared. 2, 3 squared. So we have factors of 2 and a 3. So the highest power of 2 is 2. Highest power of 3 is 2. That's 4 times 9, so we got a common denominator of 36. Multiply the 18 by 2. Multiply the 12 by 3. So 3 over 3, 2 over 2. That gives us 33 over 36. And negative, when you multiply, you get a negative 34 over 36. Common denominator is 36, write it down. Add, you get a negative 1. Can't reduce. 9 and 2. G, negative 7/9. Add on negative a half. There's no common, so LCD is the product of these two. So you multiply by 9 over 9, and you multiply it by 2 over 2. That gives us negative 14 over 18, and negative 9 over 18. Common denominator is 18, write it down. Add, you get a negative 23. And 18 to 23 goes once, and there's 5 left over. And it's negative. H, 21, broken down into 3 and 7. 14 is broken down into 2 and 7. So we got a 2, we have a 3, and we have a 7. The highest power of each of these is 1. 6 7s are 42. So we multiply 21 by 2 to get 42. 2 over 2. Multiply 14 by 3 to get 42. Or you take 42 and divide 14 into it, and you get a 3. It's, same thing. So you get a negative. 16 times 2 is negative 32. 21 times 2 is 42. 3 times 9 is 27. 14 times 3 is 42. Common denominator is 42. So we add these up, we get a negative 5. Can't reduce. There's no factor in it. 5 is not a factor of 42. Okay, let's continue. Now, if you want, you may pause your video and work all of these out. And when you get them done, press play to see if you got them right. Here we go. Common denominator for 20 and 10 is 20. So we just multiply the 10 by 2. Notice 20 is 10 is a factor of 20, so just multiply it by 2. So negative 11 over 20, negative 14 over 20. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14, 10 times 2 is 20. Common denominator is 20. Add them up and I get a negative 25 over 20. And that reduces, if you 20 into 25 goes 1, 5 left over, so it's 5 over 20, and it's negative. And 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 24, so negative 1 1/4. 2, change them to improper, change your mixed numerals to improper fractions. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11 over 8, negative. 2 times 6 is 12 plus 1 is 13 over 6, negative. Common denominator for 8 and 6, well, I see a multiple, I see a 24. So 24 I multiply by 4 over 4. And the 8 I multiply by 3 over 3. Negative 11 times 3 is 33. 3 eighths are 24. Add on. 6 times 4 is 24. Negative 13 times 4 is a negative 52. Keep your common denominator of 24, add them up, and you get an 85, negative 85. And 24 goes into negative 85, which would say 3 times. Okay, let's look at 24 divided into 81. 3. 3 4s are 12, carry your 1 is 72. 9 left over. So I have a 3 and 9 over 24, and it's negative. And that reduces to negative 3. 3 into 9 goes 3. 3 into 24 goes 8. So it's a negative 3 and 3/8. Number 3, when you add, look at the 6 and 10, the common denominator is, I'd see 30. But if you see 6 is 2 times 3, and a 10 is 2 times 5, so you need a 2, a 3, and a 5. So it's a 30. So you multiply the 10 by 3 over 3. You multiply the 6 by 5 over 5. Negative 25, 30 when you multiply. Multiply, you get 3. Multiply, you get 30. Common denominator is 30. Add up, you get a negative 22. And a negative 22, 2 into 22 goes 11. 2 into 30 goes 15. I have a 9 and a 15. 9 is 3 times 3, which is 3 squared. 15 is 3 times 5. So I have a 3 and a 5. The largest power of exponent of 3 is 2. There's only 1 5, so 9 5s are 45. So I multiply the 15 by 3 over 3, and I multiply the 9 by 5 over 5. 5 times 2 is 10, 45. Negative 11 times 3 is negative 33 over 45. Common denominator 45, write it down. Add, I get a negative 23. 23 is prime. 23 is only has factors of 23 and 1. Number 5, that's fully simplified now, sorry. That's fully simplified, can't go any further. Negative 23 over 45. Mixed numerals is 6 plus 1 is 7 over 2. Add on. 20 plus 4 is negative 24 over 5. Common denominator, there's no GCF here, nothing, so you got to multiply the two of them. 10 is the greatest common denominator, so you multiply 2 over 2, 5 over 5. 5 times 7 is 35 over 10, plus, multiply, negative 48 over 10. Common denominator is 10, and you add up, you get a negative 13 over 10. 10 to the 13 goes once, and 3 left over. So negative 1 and 3/10. 25 and 10. 25, notice if you look at them quickly, 25 doesn't have a 2, so you could see 50. But if you want to break it down, 25 is 5 times 5, which is 5 squared. And 10 is 2 times 5. We have factors of 2 and a 5. The largest power of 2 is 1. Largest power exponent of 5 is 2. 25 times 2 is 50. So you multiply the 10 by 5 to get 50. 5 on the top. You multiply 25 by 2, so you put a 2 on the top to balance it out, make it equivalent. So that's negative 44 over 50. Add on. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15 over 50. Common denominator is 50. And you add these up, you get a negative 59. And you divide 50 into 59 goes once. And there's 9 left over. And it's negative. And number 7. 24 plus 9 is 29 over 12 and is negative. Okay, now 12 and 18. If you can't see it, let's break it down. 12 is 2 times 6, and 6 is 2 times 3. So that makes it 2 squared times 3 as the prime factorization. 18 is 2 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. So that's 2 times 3 squared, prime factorization. Now that we have prime factorization, we write down, to get the GCF, which is the same as the least common multiple, we write down one of each of the factors. So we have a factor of 2 and 3. The largest exponent of 2 is 2. Largest exponent of 3 is 2. 4 times 9 is 36, which means you multiply the 12 into 36 goes 3, so you need a 3 over 3. 18 to 36 goes 2, so you need a 2 over 2. And equivalent fractions, 36 on the bottom, right there. And that's 3 9s are 27, and that's an 87. And 18 times 2 is 36, and 2 times 1 is 2. And common denominator is 36. And we add these, we get a negative 85. And 36 and 85, well, let's divide that out by hand. Looks like about a 3 goes in 8 about twice, so it's 2. Let's see, 2 6s are 12. Carrier 1 is a 7. And to subtract, you get 5, 3, 13. So that looks like it's a 2 and 13 over 36, and it's negative. 13 is prime, so it can't reduce. That brings us to the end of adding rational number, which means you're adding negatives and positives on the fractions. And, oops, wrong page. If you like the video, click on my like button, click on the subscribe button, click on the notification bell, and write a comment if you wish. And you may visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com. You find information about me in this section. That's my degrees and teaching experience. In the section on videos, you'll find the strategies you're going to use to help you learn your math. And in the section on content, you'll find the math topics that's going to be online, number of videos on each of those topics, and the black font has the videos that's already online, and the red font is the videos that I'm going to do in the near future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.